and then I can send you a link so you can see the comments.
Okay.
All right. Okay, Twitch has accepted the stream, YouTube has accepted the stream, and Facebook has accepted the stream. Now Facebook will give me the link.
Perfect.
Okay, now here is the link so you can see the comments. Okay, I just texted you the link.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, beautiful. So here we go.
Finally.
Okay, let me. If are you looking at the comment thing, at the comment page?
No, I'm not.
Okay, try
Not yet. No.
do that and make sure it's working.
Okay. Yep. Got it.
Okay, now you see the timer on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to reset it. Okay, you ready to start the show?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll put the timer right in the center here. Okay, when the timer says on the air, you're on the air, and then when it says off the air, you're off the air, okay?
Okay.
Here we go. You're on the air.
Got you. Good evening. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's show. I first just want to start by saying you're tuned into the Wright Report. That's WRIGHT report, and that's edutainment for the community. It's news that we can use for our community. Remember, without you and I, there can be no unity, and without unity, there can be no community. When you think twice you think right. That's WRIGHT. The new collabo providing edutainment, which is education and entertainment for our community. It's for us and by us. It's hosted by Jerome R. Wright, human rights activist and criminal justice reform advocate. I do want to announce that Jerome is on assignment this week and we'll be back next Tuesday, December 16th. It's the same time, same station, with a month-long explosive series of essays on the crisis in docks and criminal injustice system in New York State and nationally. That's totally gone amok, and while continuing to decimate and destroy our communities and our country. So tonight, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Thomas Gant, and I'm your host with tonight's show. I'm sitting in for Jerome, who will be here next week. I do want to give a special shout-out to Richard Wicker. He's the producer, engineer extraordinaire, and founder of Think Twice Radio. When you think twice, you think right. Wright Report, edutainment for the community. It's the power of the people is always stronger than the people in the power. And remember, power to the people. So welcome to tonight's show. I just want to also give a shout out to Jerome and everyone who won an award down in Atlanta for a beautiful documentary that's being done. It's coming on the heels of the anniversary of the Tops Massacre and documentary that was in place that Jerome and them did, and it's beautiful. Got rave reviews. I'm so thankful for the work that he's doing in the community. So I want to give him a huge shout out and thank him, Stephen Rosenthal, everyone for putting in work for us in our community, always fighting for us and doing work. I myself am coming from Albany. Today we had a remembrance of Robert Brooks. This is the anniversary of the 1 year anniversary of when Robert Brooks was murdered by correction officers at Marcy Correctional Facility. We held a day of remembrance in Albany that I attended, and one also in New York City. But our goal was to make sure that his family is supported. They haven't been forgotten, and the hundreds of families and loved ones who have been assaulted, some even murdered in prison. So we wanted to gather and have a day of remembrance where we actually highlighted that we want to make sure that our elected officials, the governor, commissioner, all of the politicians, let them know that we have not forgot. We are expecting them to do some great work and give us some real change of what we're asking for. So we went to Albany to make sure that our voices got heard. We met with some folks. People came from all across New York State, and we held a press conference. We heard from families. We heard from former victims, people who were assaulted themselves inside of prisons. And now everyone is speaking out and want to get justice and what justice looks like. And of course, justice looks different for so many folks. But mainly, the main point that everyone wanted to stress is that they want accountability. They want to be in an environment where rehabilitation is actually happening and not abuse. Families want their loved ones who are incarcerated to come home alive and safe. And so we no longer want correction officers and staff to function and move about with impunity, because that's what's been happening for decades, that officers, correctional staff can assault folks and then have no recompense or no recourse or no type of accountability. So we wanted to make sure that we say enough is enough. We wanted to make sure that families got their voices heard and that these claims are being brought to light. And so as we are heading to our legislative session, we're also trying to gather power in the community, because as Jerome says, the power lies with the people. And so if the people want more, they want different, they want better, then our elected officials and politicians have no choice but to get in line. So that was what we did today in Albany, and what's going on in New York City as we speak at this moment. They had gatherings in New York City at 6 p.m. tonight. So we just want to give a shout out to everyone who came out, everybody who traveled, and more importantly, we want to say that we see you, we hear you, and we're going to continue to fight. One of the things that we're going to ask everybody to do is make sure they join in. Make sure they join in. When the legislative session kick off in January, we want everybody to reach out to the elected officials. We want them to let them know, we want you to let them know that you want more, you deserve more, your family and loved ones deserve more, and more importantly, everybody is being impacted in some shape or form, so we want everybody to make sure that they get heard. So reach out to lawmakers, make phone calls, send emails. We have advocacy day trips. We actually going to be in Albany a lot. We're going to hit the ground running when legislative session kicks in, so we want everybody to join. We want to put you in a space, because we believe that the answer lies with the people that's most impacted. As that old advocacy adage goes and says, the people closest to the problems is normally the people that's closest to the solution. But however, they are oftentimes farthest away from resources. So we want to connect folks to resources. We want to connect you to your lawmakers. We want to make sure that you get heard, and more importantly, you get the support that you want. And so the main thing that we're going to be pressing for is sentence reform bills. There's a lot of ways that we can abolish prison, right, or decarcerate folks. But one of the ways that we're going to be focusing on is through sentence reform. And so we're going to be starting with the Earned Time Act, the Second Look Act, the Marvin Mayfield Act. These three bills, they make up our campaign called the Communities Not Cages campaign. And we are saying that this is the answer. This is an answer, since our elected officials and them cannot do anything, or they have not moved or done anything. We provided a solution. Our community has spoken out, and these are the bills that they say that they want to see happen and get past this legislative session. So we're going to be stumping the ground. We're going to be putting pressure on lawmakers. We're going to make sure that they know that their constituents want something done. The Earned Time Act will expand good and maritime. It will allow folks to participate in programs productively and earn time off of their sentence. That's a quick and fast way to give incentive, but more importantly, allow folks to have hope. When people have hope, and this is what's missing inside of New York State prisons, when people have hope, they will do better. They will thrive. They will want to work, gain skills, gain experience to put themselves in a better position. That's what folks incarcerated want. That's what their family and loved ones who are in society want. They want their loved ones to be working, getting better, rehabilitating themselves, and then more importantly, coming home to be made whole and connected with their family and loved ones and participate in our communities productively. This is what prisons are supposed to do, but however, it's not being done. So our Earn Time Act will incentivize not only good behavior, but folks incarcerated to participate in programs and then earn time off of their sentence. We also have the Second Look Act. The Second Look Act will allow folks who have been sentenced excessively to petition a judge after 10 years to say, hey, this is who I am now. I may have made some bad decisions in the past, but I've changed. These are the things that I've accomplished, and this is my perspectability. If I am allowed out, this is some of the things that I'll do. So the Second Look Act is a mechanism that will allow folks who've been sentenced excessively, I'm talking 20, 30, 40 years, 50 years or more, to petition the judge and say, hey, I think I need to be relooked at again. And this gives them a second chance or an opportunity to be looked at. And then a judge can actually resentence them. It doesn't mean it's an automatic thing that the judge is going to grant it, but there are some sentences that a judge can go in there and say, you know what, we no longer feel the same way about this situation right here, and this sentence should not stand the way it is. So that is our bill, the Second Look Act, to address excessive sentencing. And then we have the Marvin Mayfield Act. The Marvin Mayfield Act, the third bill that makes up our Communities Not Cages campaign, is a bill that the legislation that gives judges discretion, mainly to help eliminate these mandatory minimums. Most folks, when they stand in front of a judge during sentencing, a judge's hands is tied. A judge has no choice but to sentence the folks to some of these long, excessive sentencing. And so we want to undo all that, and we want to give judges discretion to sentence people more appropriately. In a criminal procedure, in a court, you have three parties. You have the defense, you have the prosecution, and you have the judge. And all three of those parties, the person who has the upper hand or the party that has the upper hand is the district attorney. The district attorney, because of mandatory minimums, can threaten a person if they go to trial to give them an excessive sentence. So they will encourage them, threaten them, or influence them or coerce them to take a plea deal. 98% of cases in New York State and conviction in New York State happen through the coercion of plea deals. And so we want to make that situation and system more balanced and allow folks to have their constitutional freedom, which is to go to trial. And then more importantly, to have a judge sentence them more appropriately should they become convicted. And so these three bills is the answer. And I want to say that the problem that we have today in prisons, not just the violence, but the excessive sentencing and how do we get to this place? Well, we got to this place because this country decided to have a war on drugs campaign starting in the 80s, and that carried off into the 90s. Then we had the 94 crime bill where some of our great political architects at the time wanted to legislate themselves out of the problem that was happening in our communities, which they labeled as crime. And however, a latent consequence they didn't factor in is that these communities that they were trying to legislate crime out of disproportionately impacted the black and brown community or these marginalized communities. That then caused a mass incarceration problem throughout this country, but mainly in New York State. States were incentivized to build prisons and then keep them fully occupied. And if they built prisons, they were to get monies from the federal government, and if they kept them occupied, there were certain benefits from that as well. Well, how do you keep a prison occupied? Through long sentencing, through not allowing folks to get out on parole, and then to keep people in prison. This created the breeding ground for the violent, destructive, harmful place and position that we are in right now, and across New York State in our prisons. And so we came up with the solution of Communities Not Cages. We said, hey, we need more investment in our communities and less in these cages or racist, archaic, destructive institutions that we now know kill people because we have proof from the Robert Brooks video, that things that we've been saying for so long. So we have the answer. We want to transform prison culture. We want to give folks on the inside hope. And by doing this will transform prison culture. When people have hope, when they are incentivized to participate productively, it will get people inside of programs. And I'll tell you this, I'm also formerly incarcerated, and I did 25 years of incarceration. And it was in my incarceration that I participated in some of these programs, and this is where I had the aha moments. And when the aha moments happened, that's when I decided to change myself, work on myself, and then I want to better the environment I was in inside the prison, and then more importantly in my community. And so because of that, that allowed me an opportunity to change and become a better person. I've come home, hit the ground running, doing some great things across New York State. And so this is the opportunity that we want to provide for other folks who are incarcerated to say, hey, here's some incentive, here's some hope that if you work on yourself, you get better, not participate in destructive behavior, you can get out a lot sooner. And those are the things that will spark interest in folks. There's some folks who are sitting in prison who have done all the things, who have had the aha moments, who have gained the skills and gained the experience, but because of the excessive sentencing, and I have some friends in particular who have 50 to life, 75 to life. One young man who I am in communication with has 120 years to life, which is ultimately a death sentence. And so the second look at will allow people like him and so many other of my friends to be able to get a chance to get re-looked at, to get a second look, to say, hey, Judge, when I made some decisions in my past, these are some of the things I was struggling with, whether it was substance abuse, whether it was mental health issues, whether it was I was a survivor of domestic violence, whether it was my brain wasn't fully developed. And here are some of the things that I've done since then, and here's who I am right now. And then more importantly, Judge, these are some opportunities I have should I be resentenced or let out. And so ultimately what we want to do is give folks these opportunities, the second chance, to have a judge look at them again. And by the way, our second look legislation have been endorsed by the Chief Judge of New York State, Ron Wilson. Ron Wilson, as well as Judge Zayas, which is the administrative judge for New York State, they both said that New York needs this type of mechanism. There are a lot of people sitting in prison who need to be resentenced or looked at or sentence changed. We no longer feel the same way about the way we sentence folks today. And even that young man who I mentioned a few seconds ago who have 120 years, if he was to make that same bad decision today, he would not receive that amount of time. And so this is an opportunity for folks in prison to get a chance to get re-looked at. More importantly, this is about families. Because the humanitarian crisis that's going on in docks, not just in New York State, but across this country, the problem and crisis that we have that's going on right now is not just about the incarcerated folks. It's about their family and loved ones. Each person who's incarcerated, we got over 32,000 people incarcerated right now in New York State. And those 32,000 people are connected to a family. They're connected to children. They're connected to husbands, to wives, to loved ones. And ultimately, the impact of mass incarceration is also trickling down to the families. They're suffering, and in most cases, suffering in silence, carrying a burden too far and too great for anyone to be carrying. And so our bills are designed to actually help not just incarcerated folks, but even their family and loved ones. So these are the things that we're fighting for and that we're going to ask everybody to come join us. We need people to join us, and we need your voice to be heard. When we go to our legislative elected officials, we want to put you in a room with them. We want them to hear your stories because ultimately they hear it from us. They hear it from Jerome all the time. They hear it from me all the time. They hear it from so many other folks who's doing this work right now. What's missing is the voice from the community, because I'll tell you this, a lot of elected officials who don't have the political courage right now or who don't have the political will, they don't have it because the people that are their constituents have not put pressure on them. They have not said, hey, this is what I want. Because remember, anybody who's been elected has been elected to reflect what it is that you want. I'm talking to all the viewers right now. The elected officials right now that's been elected have been elected to reflect what you want them to do. If you don't voice your opinion, if you don't say what you want, then they can continue to operate in this vacuum and continue to do whatever they want to do, which is inaction. And so we need everybody to let their voice be heard, because that's where the true power is. Jerome says it all the time. Power is with the people. And part of that power is allowing your voice to be heard. And there's many ways that you can contact your lawmaker or interact with them. You can send an email which is simple. You can just simply tell your lawmaker, hey, this is something I'm interested in. I think the Earned Time Act is beneficial right now. I think the Second Look Act is important. I think I need you to support that. Right? That puts that voice in their head for their staff heads, their ears. And then if you don't place a phone call, then send an email. And if you want to go to their office, you can do that. If you want to join us in Albany, you can do that. We will put you in a room with your lawmaker so that they can hear exactly what it is that you want. Maybe you are the one who is laying awake at night worried about your loved one. Is they going to be the next Robert Brooks? Is my loved one, my son, or my daughter in prison, are they the next Messiah Nantwi, who also was murdered a couple of weeks after Robert Brooks by correction officers, which was also on tape? So ultimately, this is for you. This is for the listeners and people in our community. We're making a call right now to say, hey, now is the time. We're not going to tolerate. This is an election year. This is, we don't want to. We don't want to hear that. We don't want to stand for that. So we need people in our community to speak up. And I'll tell you, I travel everywhere upstate, whether Syracuse, Buffalo, Rochester, Ithaca, Utica. I was in a couple of weeks ago, and I'm very hopeful. I'm very hopeful because folks in the community has now began to speak out. They began to ask questions to say, who do I contact? What do I got to do? And I tell folks all the time, right? When you come to these spaces, when you come to the rallies or the advocacy day, you don't have to worry about saying anything. As you can tell, I talk a lot. I got enough words. I got enough talk power for all of us. But I need you to show up in these spaces. I need you to do the small little things with the emails, the phone calls. This is how we're going to move this football down the field past the goal line. Because I'm going to tell you right now, our loved ones are in a dire situation. Most folks that's in prison right now, they are not able to participate in recreation properly. Some facilities are still locked down sporadically, 23 hours a day. Some people aren't being able to see their family loved ones because visits still, since the Wildcat illegal strike that correction officers did a month ago, we're still facing the backlash from that. So people aren't able to visit all the time, only on the weekend, and that causes a bottleneck disruption where everybody tries to get in on the weekend visits and they can't because it's oftentimes too crowded or not enough time. There's still a lot of fallout that's happened behind the illegal Wildcat strike. And so our family and loved ones are sitting in prison languishing. And again, I do want to highlight, most of them are past the point of rehabilitation. And what I mean by that is they've addressed all the issues that caused them to come to prison. They've addressed all the issues that caused them to come to prison. They've grown. They've matured. They've gained skills and experiences. I know this because I live with them. I still am in communication with them. And by the way, I know I get a lot of pats on the back and a lot of adulation for the things that I'm doing, but I'm going to tell you this right now. There's people coming behind me who will do some far greater things. Far greater things because my mentors, people who encouraged me, inspired me while I was inside, is still inside. And when those folks get out here, they're going to do some great things. And by the way, them coming home isn't just making their homes whole, right? That's part of it. We want families to be whole because if you have a whole family, that means you have whole people going into society doing great things, right? The home is the first place where we learn socialization and these great skills. So when you fix the home, you reconnect, you reconvene mothers and fathers and children with their parents, then you make a stronger components for our society. That then becomes an opportunity for our society to thrive because people who are incarcerated can now come home and become taxpayers. They can contribute to our economy. They can come up with these great ideas. They can get jobs. We have a gaping hole in our workforce right now. We have labor unions who say, hey, give these folks an opportunity to get out and work. We'll give them jobs, right? We'll put, the skills and things that they learn in prison on the inside to use out here. So this is beneficial in so many ways. There's going to be a report being released by a state comptroller who also is in support of bills like the Earned Time Act and says that it's cost beneficial for New York State to not continue to spend over $100,000 a year for each person, but to release that person, and then that person can contribute through their taxes and through contributing to the economy, making New York that much more stronger. So the consequence of doing something on the inside is great for everybody. I know that the governor has the omnibus bill on her desk right now, and the legislation this past legislative session passed an omnibus bill, which is some oversight legislation, as well as data and research collection. And my humble opinion, and this is me, this is not me talking for Jerome, this is not me talking for my organization, but in my humble opinion, this omnibus bill is really just a Band-Aid. It's really not the fix that we need in New York, right? Because we don't need to be told that people are being killed in prison. And yes, you should automatically report that death. You don't need legislation to say, hey, if somebody dies in prison, you got to report that. You don't need legislation to say, hey, give us the stats as to what happened to this person and their death. These things should be automatic. That is not going to change the systemic and overall issue and problem that we have inside of prisons, which is racism, which is modern day slavery, which is correctional staff operating with impunity. That's not going to change any of those things. So what we are saying that we need something more tangible. So yes, Governor, sign that bill, sign the omnibus bill, but that's not enough. That's only a small baby step. You need to take a larger step and get involved with and do and actually pass and then sign some of these sentence reform bills that we're asking, because the hope is what folks are asking for. It's hope, and you cannot continue to have an environment that breeds racism, that breeds violence and abuse, and then don't want to give people hope. You overcome those obstacles if you have hope. And I'll tell you, I had hope in prison. It was vague hope, but I had hope. And because of that hope, when all else failed, when I was sitting in that cell, didn't know if I was going to live or, die or even make it out of that cell the next day or make it across the compound. What kept me sane was being tethered to my family and talking and interacting with them gave me hope. It sparked hope in me to say, hey, there's going to be something greater on the horizon. Let me keep pushing through. Let me learn something. Let me read this book. Let me go participate in this program. Let me do this. You know what? Let me turn the other cheek. Even though this staff person has said something very rude and disrespectful and looked at me and treated me without dignity, let me still hold my chest up high because I feel great and good about myself because it's something I just learned. And plus, I got a bigger goal. And so those same tactics and things that I used while I was incarcerated, this is what we want to give to folks incarcerated right now. We want to give them hope. We want to give them esteem. We want them to feel good about themselves and say, hey, you're going through a tough time right now, but if you keep pushing through, there's something greater on the other side. And that greaterness is your freedom, an opportunity to be free. And if a person can tether themselves to that, that will change behaviors beyond measures. I had a conversation with Robert Brooks' father, Mr. Ricks. And one of the things that Mr. Ricks said is that had the Earned Time Act or Second Look been in place when his son was still alive, he probably wouldn't have had this type of situation happen because he probably would have had a better interaction with the staff at that time. Now, I don't like to operate in hypotheticals, but coming from someone who's carrying so much pain, turmoil, bitterness, anger at this point, but for him to say that, it resonated even more with me because I say, I believe that you're right. But not just for the Brooks family, not just for the Nantwi family, but for so many others. It's about their families as well because, again, abuse happens on a regular basis. People are treated as less than. They're looked upon as just being a number, not a human. And those are some things that need to be addressed. So if the governor is serious about honoring the Brooks family, like she said she would do, if the governor is serious about changing the prison environment, then she would no longer allow correction officers to operate with impunity. She would no longer allow that environment to be hopeless. She would no longer allow that environment to be abusive or people to be looked at as less than. And so because she hasn't come up with a solution, we wrapped it up for her and we tied it in a bow and say, Governor, communities not catered is the answer. Here's your answer. You want to give folks hope? You want to give families hope? Here's the answer. And so that's why we're saying that even this omnibus bill that the governor has on her desk, it's a Band-Aid. And hey, Band-Aids do help stop bleed, does stop people from bleeding and things of that nature. So sign the omnibus bill, but don't stop there. We need the Earned Time Act. We need the Second Look Act. We need the Marvin Mayfield Act. We need our parole reform bills, fair and timely parole. There are folks who've been going to the parole board 10, 20, 15 times. I talked to a guy earlier who went to the parole board. So there's some injustice happening in the whole Department of Corrections. It's a systemic issue, and it lies deep, and it's in roots. So if the governor, if our elected officials is serious about changing the culture in prison, if they're serious about honoring the life of Robert Brooks and so many others who have lost their lives behind those walls, then our legislative officials will act, and they'll act now. The time is now. We are in a detrimental crisis. It's detrimental. Humanity is at stake here, right? Because the only way that you can abuse someone, you can subject them to so much violence, that you can just lock a person in a cage and say, hey, just deal with it, is because you don't see the humanity in them. You don't see the humanity in them. And so, unfortunately, we have elected a lot of people, or because of our non-participatory ness in the process of election and voting, or wherever the case may be, but these people are in position, and they're in a position because of us, either our actions or our inactions, by the way. And because of that, we have a lot of people who do not see the humanity in folks. But all is not lost. All is not lost. Why do I say that? The minute these elected officials began to hear, when they began to hear how are impacted, when they began to see that you are serious about it, it causes them to be serious. The minute you share some of your humanity with them and let them know how you're feeling or what you're dealing with, that can actually invoke or spark that human eyes inside of them. And so, again, we're making the call for everybody. We need everybody to be all hands on deck. We should not have another life lost behind those prison walls. And if another life is lost at the hands of correctional staff, this blood is on the governor's hands. It's on the inaction of our elected officials. It's because they chose to not have the political courage or will to act and to do what's right. One of the things that I'm so fed up with is elected officials saying, hey, I'm in a purple district, or a new term they've been using is, I'm a marginal, or I'm in a district that could be that's purple, or it could be flipped at any time. So I don't want to get involved with any controversial legislation. And I said, you got to be kidding me. You're sitting here telling me that this is the right thing to do, that what's going on inside of prison is immoral, but your inaction is because you're more concerned about keeping the seat. You got elected to come in here and do what's right. Not once you get elected, you give all these political campaign promises, and then when you get elected, you spend the rest of your time as an elected official campaigning to keep your seat. That doesn't make sense to me. And I understand that this is a political animal. This is a rage against machine that we're asking folks to do, but it can be done. It can be done. We can actually force them to start doing what we want them to do, and that they will have to reflect what it is that we want. And why do I say have to? It's because the power lies with us. We all have the power. It's your voice. It's your email. It's your phone call. It's coming to our event or rally, holding up a sign. It's talking to media. It's writing an op-ed. It's also just being supportive to your neighbors or someone else who who's dealing with of mass incarceration and the impact of it, right? Because oftentimes, most folks who have a loved one that's incarcerated don't have no one that they can talk to. So sometimes it's just giving that support. But what we cannot continue to do is inaction. We cannot continue to not do nothing. We have to do something. And the time is now. And I'll tell you this right now. When I was in my 23rd year of incarceration, what helped me get past that scratch line, so to speak, what helped me push through those last couple of years, because I'll tell you this, I was impacted very much while I was incarcerated. I believe I started having undiagnosed mental health issues. I started having bouts of anxiety, and that would trigger panic attacks while I was locked in that 6x10 cell, and things of that nature, and all type of things went through my mind. And it's just for the grace of God that I made it out of prison, not just saying, well, at least in my mind I'm saying, but not just making it out saying, but made it out. And unfortunately, there's a lot of folks that's not. But another key component that helped me was I knew that folks were out here fighting for me. People who didn't even know me was joining in rallies. People who didn't even know me was sending emails to their lawmakers. People who didn't even know me was going to advocacy days. And when I found those things out, it put like a battery in my back. It helped me to stand up straight. It helped me to look people into their eyes. It helped me to walk with some esteem. And so that's what we need folks in our community to do. We need you to get involved. We need action. We need things done, because I always want to point this out. There is $3.2 billion that was passed in last year's budget that's being spent on the Department of Corrections right now. I believe that number is going to be inflated, because I don't believe the numbers for the National Guard is actually accurate at this moment. But over $3 billion is being spent on a system that murders people, that abuses incarcerated, and that disrespects and demeans the family members and loved ones of those that are incarcerated. So you got every right to step up. You got every right to stand up and say, hey, enough's enough. I deserve better. I want better. This is my tax dollars. They take money out of your paychecks, out of your retirement, every single day, out of stuff you buy in the store. Every single day, they take money out of that. And they're pouring it into the system that continues to harm folks. I happened to watch the documentary Alabama Solutions recently. And I would encourage everybody to watch it. It's very triggering. It's very hurtful. It will invoke emotional responses. It's not easy to watch. I will say that. But one of the things that it does give you an inside view to is how the governor of Alabama really feels about mass incarceration and how elected officials act. And they're candid. One thing I can say about these evil people in Alabama is that at least they're honest. And they really could care less about people dying or being rehabilitated. They just want to lock folks up and continue to provide a payroll to their family and loved ones. That's it. They were very honest about it, right? But one of the things that the governor of Alabama said, that they're building 3 new mega prisons, and it costs $1 billion. They only had $900 million. So she okayed and told them to take $100 million out of education and to cover the deficit to help continue to build those 3 prisons. So that governor and those officials, elected officials, were more concerned with prisons, keeping people locked up, harming and killing folks, rather than educate their constituents and people in their community. And it's blatant. And they don't have no type of shame about it. Take $100 million out of education and pump that into the Department of Corrections in Alabama. Now, I want to just juxtapose Alabama with what we're doing and dealing with in New York State, because even though New York State doesn't have the courage, right, to actually admit how they actually feel, because they'll side talk and double talk you, I will not believe that they. I also believe they probably feel the same way. Some of those conversations is happening, it's just not on tape. They don't have enough courage to come on tape and say that. But this is why we need action. This is why we need action from folks in our community, and it's up to us. No one's going to help us but us. And until we step up and everybody understands the impact that is happening in our community, things is not going to get better. So we encourage everybody, reach out to elected officials, reach out to your loved ones, reach out to your incarcerated folks that you know and let them know that we out here fighting. But more importantly, do something. Pick up that phone, send an email, join our advocacy days, call Jerome, call me, reach out. We will put you in space. One of the things that we're very great at doing is connecting folks to resources who want to get involved. And so that's what we're going to ask everybody to do, and that's what we need. I really appreciate this opportunity to speak to everyone today. And if there's any questions, please feel free. I meant to encourage everybody to send comments so I can actually answer them live. I would like to be able to answer any questions or comments that anybody may have. But this is a great opportunity, and I also just want to highlight that this is the edutainment that my brother and Richard created. And this is great because we need opportunities where our community do not have to only get their information from these so-called traditional ways. These traditional ways is the reason why we have been blinded or not fully educated. They control the narrative. And so what we want to do is say, here's the narrative. This is what we want from our community. And this is the information that we're going to share. We're no longer going to just accept what they say on their news shows or what they say on their TV and radio shows. We want to give it to people straight. And so make sure you tune in where you can think twice, you can think right. It's the new collabo providing edutainment and education for our community. This is for us and by us. The great Jerome Wright, Richard Wicker, the great producer extraordinaire, have done some phenomenal things. We want you to continue to support. Make sure you tune in. We want to make sure that everyone continues to get their education properly about what's going on, because we are in a crisis, and not just in our communities, but in these institutions. And so ultimately, we have to be unified. And remember, you cannot be unified if you do not have a you and I. I love when Jerome says that, because without you and I, there's no unity. And without unity, remember how you spell community. It involves unity. So we need everybody to make sure that they participate. Let your voice be heard. Again, it's really simple. Even if you don't have a loved one incarcerated, I'm making this plea everywhere I go. Even if you don't have a loved one incarcerated, still speak up. Because it may be someone else's turn today, yours to be tomorrow. I remember I just talked to a young lady 2 weeks ago who never thought that her son would be incarcerated. And yet, here she is. And she never wanted to participate or never felt like that even the stuff that we were talking about mattered until it happened to her. And again, I'm not trying to use fear politics to get folks to participate or be involved. But if we're really going to have community, then we got to think about other folks and what's happening in our community. And the best way to do that is to be involved, even if it's not at your doorstep, because you never know. You never know. We're going to be coming back next week. Jerome will be back in the host seat. And again, I just want to remind everyone that he has a whole bunch of great essays and information for not just New York State prisons, but also across the country. One of the things that he's going to be, I'm sure, talking about and being celebrated for, and rightfully so, is a socially conscious documentary that they actually won at the Spotlight Film Festival Awards in Atlanta. Was so blessed and fortunate to be able to have folks of sell things and actually give them great opportunities to be successful. Him and the great director, Stephen Rosenthal, did some great work. And also the actor, Stephen McKinley. So they actually produced a great documentary. We want everybody to still go see it. It's winning awards. They're doing great behind it. Everybody needs to see this because racism is still alive. It's still alive and doing very well, unfortunately, in communities. And along with Jerome and Stephen, they have a great actor, and I love this guy. The funny thing is, you never really, for me, I didn't even know that he was a Buffalo native, but Stephen McKinley Henderson. This guy has been in hundreds of films, and I'm not even exaggerating. Some of my most famous films that I watched, movies like Civil War, Fences, A Raisin in the Sun, Tower Heist, and the list goes on. Lady Bird, The Madness, the list goes on. This guy is a great, phenomenal Hollywood actor, and they put together a phenomenal documentary. Make sure everyone get a chance to go see it. They're doing great work putting a spotlight on, of all places, Buffalo, and how racist and segregated Buffalo is. And if we're really talking about making things equal and right on our community, then we have to address the elephant in the room, which is racism. It's still sitting over in the corner. It's still around. It's still baked into the institutions. It's still baked in a lot of the things that we are involved with. And until we address it and eradicate it, then we're still going to have disparities in our community. And if we want to be whole, if we want to be right, we have to talk about these things. And we have to address it, especially how much racism has been baked into not only this country, but across New York State and even in Buffalo. So make sure everyone check out that documentary done by the great Jerome Wright, Stephen Rosenthal, and Stephen McKinley. It was phenomenal, really phenomenal. Okay, I'm actually going to be signing off pretty soon. I really appreciate this opportunity to sit before everyone and to talk. I love these opportunities, and again, as you can tell, I love talking. I used to stutter very bad, and people would not believe that I am actually doing some of the work that I've done as a kid. I used to. I say I was a crippled stutterer. I mean, it was a speech impediment, and I didn't talk as much because I was very embarrassed about it, and I didn't talk. I got teased behind it, and things of that nature. And so, because I didn't talk as a kid, I talk a lot now. I love talking. So, and sometimes I talk a little too much, but I love doing these type of different things because, again, it's important for everybody's voice to be heard. Again, I was one whose voice did not get heard a lot because of the impediments and things that I had going on. But there's more than just speech impediments going on in our communities where people aren't being heard. People aren't even being paid attention to, especially in our marginalized communities, especially in some of the things that, our federal government is doing right now, intentionally silencing the voices of a lot of folks. So it's important for everybody to be able to have their voice heard. And that's why I take it very serious. I make sure that I not only listen to people, but make sure I can do what I can do to make sure their voice gets heard. So, again, this is your opportunity. Make sure you reach out if you need any help or suggestions. You need any ideas on what you can do. You want to say, hey, you know what? I want to do something about this. How can I participate? Reach out. We'll give you the insights. We'll make the connections for you, right? Or it's simple. Send emails. Elected officials. I cannot underscore this enough, how important it is. When we begin to send emails and flood our elected officials, it makes them say, what is this issue that they're talking about, right? Because I'll keep it real with you. Sometimes our elected officials, they are, receiving bills and suggestions week in and week out. Sometimes thousands of different bills come across their desk. So it's hard to keep certain important things in front of their face. So you help us do that when you send emails, when you make phone calls, right? And then it makes it that much more easier when we do talk to them, when we do show up in their office, when we do show up in Albany. They'll have an idea what we're talking about because their constituents have already reached out to them about that. So that's a very excellent way to get your voice heard, right? To make sure you don't have no impediments or things hindering how you feel or what you want. Speak up, speak out. And again, I encourage everybody to do this because you never know when it just might be your time and you might be the one who needs help. So we need everybody to do that. And don't forget, my special date, January 26th. Join me in Albany. I'm sending buses. We're taking buses from across the state, and we're going to be going to Albany for our Communities Not Cages Advocacy Day. And we're going to hold a big press conference. We're going to hear from impacted leaders and their family members, elected officials, coalition supporters, labor unions, a whole host of folks is on slate. And then we're going to actually put you in a room with lawmakers. You're going to get a chance to express how you feel, or just be in a space with somebody else expressing what they feel. But the aesthetics of it, I always say this, the more people that we have there, the more they know how serious we are. And then more importantly, you get a chance to make sure that your voice get heard by sitting across the table from your lawmaker. You never know. You might say the right thing to get them to sign on. I always say Albany is filled with serendipitous moments where you could be on an elevator with your lawmaker. You might be in a room and you might say something or do something to make them understand what it is that you want. So please come out and join us. We'll be providing transportation, and I will get a chance to do my most favorite thing, which is buy lunch for everybody. So we do provide lunch and also food and snacks for the trip to Albany. Buses are going to be leaving from all over New York State, but we need everybody to come be involved, and that's January 26th. Thank you, and make sure you have a great night. And if I don't talk to you again before the holidays, enjoy the holidays, enjoy the time off. But just remember, when you are out here enjoying time out with your family, there's some families that's not whole right now. There's some people who's being subjected to abuse, to violence, even murder at the same very moment while we're happy unwrapping our gifts. Keep that in mind, that it's not just about us. If we want a whole, thriving community, then we have to reach out and do what we can for others, even if we aren't the ones that's being impacted at this moment. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. And I'm going to turn it back over now to our great engineer, Rich.